So they're going after you for the bag of everything.
They're going after me for my license. That's why they're going after me. They're going after me to neutralize me from practicing law. That's the bottom line. Officer Steele told Brian Macbeth at the scene when Brian said, "What is this all about?" He said, "It's a political thing."
So why are you running? Do you think that you can make progress in all of those areas? Are you hoping to...
I think I can make progress in all those areas.
You think
overnight.
you can?
Overnight, absolutely. Because again, I mean, I've been working the system for a while, and I've represented a lot of people. I've done 2 murder cases where people were falsely accused, and they were cleared of the charges. I'm being prosecuted myself right now, and that was the inspiration. That's exactly the reason people should vote for me. People say, "Why should we vote for you? You've got a criminal case pending." That's it. My case. If you see the facts of it, the abuses involved, the unreliability of the informants, the fact that it was started by political lobbying of Rex Bone in the police report. It says that they politically lobbied for an investigation of me. It doesn't say that there were calls from the community.
Who politically lobbied against
unnamed
you?
people through Rex Bone's office. Now, if you call your legislature, your county supervisor is a local legislature. If you call him, you are by definition lobbying the government, not making a criminal report. You're lobbying your local elected official.
Had any police reports been made about your
I looked
residence?
at the calls for service. I looked at the calls for service in and around that date, before that date. There was one. It was from my house to enforce a restraining order my spouse made against someone else. Okay. There were no other reports, calls for service legitimate to the sheriff's department for that area of Cutton. The prelim that the officer said that it was a high crime area. That's why he was patrolling my area this one time. As opposed to Walnut Street, I said Cutton in general. He said no, Cedar Street. That's a completely false, fraudulent statement. Cedar Street that era had almost no calls. Walnut Street naturally had a lot more calls.
Okay, we gotta pause for a second. Start this from the beginning because this is a key aspect of your campaign, whether you want it to be or not.
I want it to be. I want it to be. I wouldn't be running if it wasn't for the fact that they're trying this against me. Because
that's what started it.
That's what inspired me to run in the first place. And I think the facts of my case are the reason that I should be voted in, because they are outrageous government abuse of authority.
Okay, so lay out the scene for me. This is back in February of 2020.
Yes.
There's a raid on your house over on Cedar Street.
Mm-hmm.
You are found to be in possession of meth. There is...
there's drugs in a bag in my office. What was in my pocket was not a usable quantity of anything. It was just a piece of trash, literally.
But it was meth in that bag.
I don't know that they tested that. It was a bag. It was a bag that I had picked up in the street. And so it was no usable quantity. You could see it in the photo. If you look to the right of the photo, there's a bag that looks like it has nothing in it. It's just halfway cut off the photo. I think that's the one. They haven't given us all the discovery in the case after 2 years, which is another gripe and reason that I'm running, is they can't even find the videotape from my DVR that is on the property receipt that they took. They can't even find that. They won't give us that. They're saying they can't locate it.
Okay. So we got to set the scene for people that don't know the story, because I do want to talk about that as well. There are drugs, firearms.
There's none in the house. Yeah, they're at
the
storage unit and Cutton mini storage.
But no firearms in your property.
No.
And
in my storage unit, though, yes.
Your storage unit.
Separate
and Xanax bars at your house.
Xanax bars, heroin, scales, all in the same.
Meth.
And meth. And heroin.
This is your house, and this also doubles as your office.
In my office, they found a bag of drugs and some scales in a bag in my office. Okay, it is at the top of the stairs. It is not hidden. It's in plain view. I'm not sure what kind of drug dealer keeps their stash at the top of the stairs in the middle of the room. Doesn't make sense. But and there's Suboxone in there too, in a bottle. The only indicia in that bag has one name on it, Shelley Aubrey. And do the police follow up? You think they usually say indicia, there was indicia of this person, right? Do they follow up on that indicia? No, they don't call her at all. They didn't call Shelley Aubrey at all. I've now met Shelley Aubrey because I tracked her down for that reason. And because I didn't know her from Adam. Yeah, I didn't know who she was. Her statement is that she left that bag in a car with the person who was also arrested at my house just the day before, and that she was in a car with that person, left the bag, and she knows that person. She hangs out with that person all the time. Obviously, it belongs to that person.
And it was just at your house.
That person was at my house. That person gave me $1,000 retainer because she said she needed my advice on a case.
And so you and your partner Sarah Carroll were charged felony charges selling drugs, maintaining a drug house, and selling prescription drugs.
Right. Yeah, sales kit. They think I'm a heroin dealer, which is outrageous because they claim to have 10 informants over the course of the year in my house, none of which ever said I was a heroin dealer, none of which ever saw any heroin sales in my house. None of them claimed that I was a heroin dealer. So how did they came in on the theory that I was a firearms dealer. They told me when they came in, you're under, this is a warrant for firearms sales and conspiracy to commit firearms sales with 2 other locations. There were 4 locations in this warrant, same warrant, 4 locations.
All 4 yours? Or it was just your house and storage
my storage
property?
unit, a client's house, and the client's a client of mine's father's house in Ridgewood, which I've never been to. I've never stepped foot in that house. Okay, that was the house that the paper had the picture. Most of the guns were from their house. The illegal assault weapon, the half-pound of heroin was found over there. I've never been to that house. I'm not saying that my client wasn't a drug dealer. I represent many criminals or alleged criminals in the county. Okay, he wasn't even present at the house, but I've never been to that house, ever stepped foot in it. Okay, I don't know what's in his dad's safe. Half-pound of heroin. Now, before we go forward there, I want you to look at the resolution so far. 6 people arrested that day under that warrant. 2 of them who were already felons, either on federal probation, one was a strike felon on state probation, weren't even charged, even though they were found in possession of something. Okay, 2 of them were given misdemeanors. The one that that planted the bag of drugs in my office, and the other one is the one in Ridgewood, which had a half-pound of heroin and 30 firearms, including assault weapons and stolen firearms. Those 2 people got misdemeanors with no prelim. They were offered misdemeanors without having to go through a prelim. So you have 2 non-prosecutions, 2 misdemeanors. That leaves Sarah and myself. We have not been made an offer in 2 years, and we're still looking at 7 felonies. Even though the other people had more culpability, more drugs, illegal weapons. I mean, actually, there was a half-pound of heroin and a handgun found in the same safe at the house in Ridgewood. He was given a misdemeanor without a prelim. Why are we still pending felony charges with no? They haven't even made us a felony offer, let alone a misdemeanor offer. They haven't made us any offers to settle. It's a political prosecution. My friend Brian McBeth, who was one of the ones arrested, he was simply leaving my house. He didn't ever bring drugs in my house. He had them in his car. And he was on federal felonies probation. They didn't prosecute him at all, and he had a half ounce of methamphetamine in his car. So, but that never came into my house. He was simply picking up.
Was Brian the one? Was he the felon that you previously represented?
I don't know. I never represented Brian. No.
What?
He left.
Haberman.
Kevin Haberman is
known felon. Was arrested at your house.
No, he wasn't at my house.
At your house.
No, he was never found that day. He was not at my house or his father's house.
But he alleged that he was storing guns at your place.
He didn't. An informant did.
Allege that.
An unnamed informant alleged that he sometimes. Actually, if you look at the affidavit, it's third-hand information. It's Tomlin saying that Couch said that an informant said. Okay.
Tomlin being one of the officers.
Yeah. Detective Tomlin says that Couch says that some unnamed informant says that Michael sometimes stores guns for Kevin Haberman in his house. So it's third-hand information. This is coming in through an affidavit that goes to a judge. Completely unreliable. If it violates all the case law. I mean, you're supposed to have the informant in the judge's chamber so the judge can assess their reliability right there. That's how the original informant case law came out. The judge was assessing the reliability themselves, right? Let alone it being an affidavit of a person that they say was doing it for the betterment of the community. I know who that informant is. I figured it out from the dates. I'm not going to say his name over the air, but that person was not doing it for the betterment of the community. They were pulled over on 1123 in front of the zoo, and they had no license. They had no tags in their car, no insurance, and were in possession of some heroin. And so it wasn't for the betterment of the community. That they said that's the only person it could be, because the person told me they were pulled over that day, and they know Kevin and myself both pretty well. But I'm not going to say his name, but that's what that information comes from. That person was let off of all those crimes, so it wasn't for the betterment of the community.
So you think he was coerced into doing that?
I think words were put in his mouth, because the officer will say, well, does Michael have firearms? Well, yeah. The answer is yeah. Does Kevin have firearms? Yeah. Does Michael store his firearms? Now, what does the his refer to? Kevin or mine?
It would be Kevin storing at your house.
Technically, by the Queen's English, yes. It would be Kevin. If he says, does Michael have firearms stored? Yes. Does Kevin have firearms stored? Yes. Does Michael sometimes store his firearms? Does that? Well, actually, it would be my.
Because it's ambiguous.
The question asks if I store my firearms, okay, and it's taken as in the affidavit, Michael stores Kevin's firearms. That's how this goes down. There's 3 yeses on the side of the street from a nervous guy who thinks he's going to jail.
Is that how it was phrased, or this is just your assumption of the incident?
That's what it says in the police report. That's what the police report, if you look at it, it could easily be that. It's just like, well, the question is totally vague. I mean, it's like, do you say he has firearms, Does Michael sometimes store his firearms? Does that refer to Michael store Michael's firearms, or Michael store Kevin's firearms at his house? Because I never stored Kevin's firearms at my house. I didn't store my own firearms at my house.
That's actually how it was phrased in the document?
That we don't know because Couch's affidavit isn't available. This is an affidavit of a conversation that occurred. But that's, as far as I could tell, it could have, it probably was.
So were the firearms at the storage unit yours?
The firearms at the storage unit were mine that I was
all
storing.
Registered?
Yeah, well, they were registered. I was actually trying to keep another client unrelated in compliance because he couldn't have them. They're heirloom firearms that he's trying to pass on from his dad to his grandson. His dad's dead now, but his passed away. But he was 90 years old. Question of competence, couldn't even get an affidavit to transfer him because question of competence, right? So they were basically waiting for an executor to pass them on when he passed away to his son. They're heirloom firearms, about 10 of them. I had 3 firearms of my own. None of them were illegal firearms. None of them were stolen. None of them were loaded. I couldn't even access them after 7 p.m. I'm the model of gun ownership, responsible gun ownership. I had them at a separate facility locked down without anything illegal. There was nothing illegal in my storage unit. Nothing. And they took all the firearms, but I've never been charged with a firearm violation.
What about the heirloom firearms?
Those are still that belong to the client. They're still with the sheriff's department.
Were those all legal?
Those were all
and registered?
legal. Yeah, they were rifles. And
Are you allowed to do that?
Well, yeah. Why not? I mean, I'm allowed to hold client property.
He couldn't have them because he was a felon. Because
he couldn't have them at his house. His dad lives with him at his house. He can't have them because of he has a pot conviction way back in the day, I believe.
So felony conviction.
Yeah, it's a felony conviction for marijuana, which he hasn't restored his rights. And that was the only thing. There might have been a restraining order involved. I'm not sure. I can't remember now. But I do know that his dad lives with him, and it was a gray area because they could be locked in the house and he could not have access to them. But he didn't want to skate that thin line because he had a bad divorce going on. So he said, could you just hold these for me for now? So I was holding them. It's client property. It's in trust with an attorney. There's nothing wrong with that ethically.
Yeah, but if it's client property that the client's not legally allowed to own,
well, is
that a gray area?
It's the client's dad's property, but I'm doing it to make the client in a more defensible position in case there's a question of why he has firearms at his house. So the dad wasn't even competent to create that relationship with you. So it's the client as the property owner. The firearms belong to his father. He has the care of his father because no one else does. Because he's 90, and so. We thought it was the most prophylactic, best preventive measure for him getting in trouble or having a question why there's firearms at his property. So it was in all good intentions. The road to hell, yeah.
But I could see how that would get ethically ambiguous because my understanding is that if you're charged with a felony, you can no longer own a firearm.
If you've
been
convicted of a felony, yes.
Which he was
of a pot felony way back when, yeah. So that's true, but but that one in that particular case, the law has changed, and unlike Prop 47 on the drugs being reduced to misdemeanor, marijuana. If you have a felony marijuana conviction from the past, you can get your firearm restored. It's a little gray on the implementation of that, whether you need a petition to do so or whether it just automatically happens. But the legislative intent on the marijuana decriminalization, I believe it was Prop 64 or something like that, that intended to restore people's civil rights to the fullest extent. They made a point in the legislative journals about that.
And so they're not going after you for any firearms charge? Because I read an article that said yeah, and then another one that said they weren't.
No, we were never, in the original complaint, we were never charged with any firearms because there weren't any firearms violations. All my guns were locked away separate and none were stolen or assault weapons. There was no firearms at my house whatsoever. I think they were hoping, they told me that they came in that day because they were hoping that there was a firearm there. They heard there was a firearm. I had a pellet gun replica of a Sig Sauer firearm. It's a pellet gun. Anyone with any firearms training could look at the barrel and tell you that's a pellet gun. It's not a real firearm. Okay, so they have bad informants. Sometimes gave bad information. They were hoping to find any amount of drugs with any firearm, and that becomes a felony automatically. And it's very hard to defend.
That combination.
Yeah, that combination is automatic felony, no matter what the quantity, regardless of intent to sell. It's just bam, it's a felony.
They had been watching your house for a few months though prior.
Oh yeah. So let me give you the background on that. So first of all, you have DA investigators looking at my house, which I find really offensive because DA investigators should be preparing for trial for attorneys. They should be post-arrest preparation for trial.
Okay, back up one step further. This had all been started off by somebody calling, I'm guessing Rexbone, saying there's a lot of activity at your house.
Yeah.
A lot of people coming and going, not staying very long. I read some quote that was 25 cars a day.
Yeah. Well, you remember they had 10 informants coming at me, too. So did that?
So
this
is what starts that.
That's supposedly, yeah. That's what officially they say.
And so somebody called Rex, and Rex notified the DA's office, the police.
Rex went to Matt Tomlin, and Matt Tomlin started an investigation. It was a lobbying effort for an investigation.
And Matt Tomlin works for
Drug Task Force, Sheriff's Department. And him and Bernstein and a couple of other people watched my house. They sent people to my house to attempt to buy firearms. Abishan did that. He let Trevor Gibney out of jail on a PRCS hold, which they never do. Another discount of a criminal who couldn't possibly have passed moral background check as an informant because he's a puppy killer. He has a animal cruelty conviction, and he has a car burglary conviction. These are convictions. I'm no risk of defamation here. He's a car burglar and a attempted puppy killer. He threw a puppy off a bridge, and it was rescued. It was in the paper a long time ago.
That's pretty dark, though.
That's pretty dark. So how does he pass a moral background check to be an informant, a reliable informant? They let him out of jail on a PRCS hold. Abishan does this, who works for the DA, comes to my house, tries to buy a firearm from me on the theory that he's a known felon, supposedly to me. I didn't know he was a felon until afterwards. But and that if I sell him a firearm, then that's a violation of law, selling a firearm to a felon, right? So
did you do that?
No. He asked me if I had any firearms for sale. I said, I don't have any firearms for sale. He goes, well, do you have firearms? I said, yeah, I store my firearms. I'm storing them from somebody else too. And well, I really need one. Could you help me find one? And I was like, that's not what I do. But I said, I'll call the person and see if she can help you. And I called someone.
He was just a stranger at this point?
No, he had been introduced to me as needing legal advice on something. And his minor legal advice didn't even seem like it was much of anything, but it was like a pending case or something like that. Most of these people get into my door because they say they want legal advice.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because this is your house and also your office. So setting that line as someone trying to interpret the story right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that if I'm guilty of anything it's of having a home office, a home law office. That's what I'm guilty of. Because that is probably not an ethical mistake. It's just a practicality mistake, I think. It's just, and I never intended to be a full-time practicing law anyway. It's just part-time practicing because I was raising my son. He's at the age where I want to spend a lot of time with him. And
but back to this, they approach, to buy firearms. Did they approach and try to buy drugs at any point? No drugs.
No.
Just firearms.
The Tomlin said at the prelim that he did has someone come into my house during the course of the year or something and attempt to buy heroin, and that it was not successful. That I was present, but no heroin was sold. So where's that discovery? I want that discovery in that tape. He said it was a wired informant. I want the wired tape showing that I specifically said, I don't sell heroin. I'm not a heroin dealer.
How long were they watching your house for?
They claim the original newspaper said a year, but the police report only supports back to like November before the February. Now,
November of 2019.
Yes. Now, here's the weirdest thing. One of the weirdest things is my booking number. If you look at February 4th, 2020, is a 2019 booking number. That number is generated by the booking system when someone is arrested. They reserved sometime in 2019, and presumably December after the 9th, when Tomlin had this conversation with Rex Bone, they reserved a booking number for me and my spouse and Mr. Haberman. They basically prejudged our arrest. And when we left LA for Christmas and were conveniently, inconveniently unavailable to them for a raid, they had already generated those numbers. So they had to bust me to fulfill those ghost numbers.
Wait, so they did that back in November?
Back in December 9th is when he had the conversation with Rex Bone.
December 9th.
So sometime in 2019, my point is, they prejudged us and created booking numbers reserved for us because there's no one else in 2020 in the booking sheets that has a 2019 booking number.
Okay, so walk me through booking numbers because I don't understand
The
that.
booking number is generated automatically by the jail system. It's not a police investigative number. The police investigation number is probably a 2019 number.
Booking at time of warrant, at time of intake, at time of booking.
You are arrested. They presume they have probable cause to arrest you, and you're in the jail and you're being booked. You're given a computer-assigned booking number. It's sequential. I have a 2019 booking number in February of 2020. I don't think they thought I would look at that, but that exists in the official documents. They prejudged. They were preordained, pre-manufactured to arrest. It was reserved for me. Let's put it that way. They were going to arrest me no matter who said what at the property because they had this informant plant those drugs there. And she walked away and said they weren't hers. The warrant was 7 days old. Okay.
The warrant that they used for the raid in
February was 7 days old. If I was such a danger, imminent threat to society that they told the judge, why didn't they come in immediately? They waited 7 days. They came in 3 minutes after that person that planted the drugs walked into my house. 3 minutes. After 7 days of no action on a warrant, they watched me pick up my son alone that day at 2 p.m. I wasn't hard to find. I was alone. I picked up my son. The normal protocol is to catch someone when they leave the house, pull them over, search them in their car. That way you isolate them from destroying any evidence back at the house, right? And you take them back to their own raid, and then you search the house, right? They didn't do that. They had the opportunity to. They followed me to Washington School and back, didn't bust me. They had the warrant in hand, and then they decided to come at 6:30 at night when that person came with my spouse. She had requested a ride from my spouse to come talk to me and gather up some documents that she just hired me 2 days before. Said she needed to retain me for an availability retainer, which I should have been suspicious of. Because you rarely get an availability retainer just says, I need you available in case I have legal problems. Only one I've ever had in my life. $1,000 just down to be available to her in case something happens. So I'm feeling obliged to let her into my house. Sarah's feeling obliged to pick her up, gives her a ride to the DMV. She is attempting to apparently register a Harley Davidson that turns out to be stolen, we find out.
Okay, wait, times again. Because I want to keep this in order so that I can understand it. So they're watching your house.
They're watching. Well,
they had been sending people to buy firearms and drugs all year. How many times?
I don't know, but we never sold any firearms and drugs. The affidavits don't say we did. But then they hit this person who they decide they're going to have come in and put these drugs down.
And this is the person who had that availability
retainer. And so she picks her up, brings her to my house, and she puts the drugs down.
So this is February 4th now.
She comes into my office.
And gives you that retainer, or had already supplied
2 days before she'd supplied it. And so that's why we felt obliged to go give her a ride and speak to her.
And she just shows up at your house?
No, Sarah gave her a ride.
She asked
Sarah to give her a ride.
Your partner?
Mm-hmm. She asked her to give her a ride to the DMV, and then she said she'd swing back by my house to get the documents she left there 2 days before. There were some documents regarding this dispute she's having with PG.
Give her a ride to the DMV where Sarah and this lady,
Tracy Nicholas.
Were they friends?
Yeah. We had met. She was a client, but we're friendly with our clients.
Client for 2 days?
No, I represented her of record in Trinity County on her mother's estate, but that case was completed mostly. So she was,
because that's kind of weird to just call and give somebody a ride to the DMV out of the blue, right?
Right. Well, she's from High and Palm, and she had wrecked her car. She'd been down here with her BMW. She'd wrecked her car just days before. This is what makes me suspicious about it. She wrecked her car, said she had police contact with wrecking her car, was under the influence of something, but the police didn't arrest her. So then a couple days later, she needs a ride to the DMV, trying to register some other vehicles, and she just retained me. She had literally wrecked her car since the time she left giving me that retainer. She wrecked it on that trip back to the hotel. So now she's stuck down in Eureka because she's from High and Palm.
Did you notice her under the influence of anything at that time?
When she left my house?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. And I tried to get her to stay, and I made a place for her to sleep on the bed. And I said, you need to just stay here for a while. And I went back upstairs because I was working on something. And next thing you know, I look up and her car's taken off, and she took off.
Was it alcohol? Was it
I have no idea.
marijuana?
I think it was pills. Yeah, I think there was some sort of groggy pill. I'm not really familiar with pills.
Is that how you know that she was under the influence of something when she wrecked her car? Or was that in a police report?
That's what that's how I know, yes. That's
how you know. So it wasn't in any official document saying that?
No, there's some official document saying she wrecked her car that day.
But not...
And her word of mouth said she wrecked the car that day. She told me that she did.
But no indication of why in those documents.
Right, yeah, no, why? Because she walked away. She left the scene of an accident, which is also a crime.
And that was...
And then she said she came back when she had sobered up and interfaced with the police that were at her vehicle, and then they didn't arrest her.
But is there anywhere public that saes that, or this is just coming from you?
2 days before, there should be police records. Yeah, I asked them for this discovery. I said, well, where's the discovery? There are incidents near the Red Lion Hotel that are similar to that. I can't identify which one it is, but that happened 2 days before the raid. So then she gets a ride from Sarah to come get the documents that she left when she left in her stupor.
Okay, pause. So the police didn't charge her with anything.
No.
They just let her
Yes.
go. Okay. So then Sarah picks her up, takes her to the DMV.
She tries to register a vehicle. The police are called by the DMV because she's trying to register a stolen Harley Davidson. Okay, you can listen. That's on the scanner. You can listen on the scanner archive. And somebody called S4. S4 says 1020.
What is S4?
S4 is a code for some. It's some personnel of the sheriff's department. I'm not sure who it is. Okay, it says S4. I think it's in my prelim transcript too. But they said S4 says 1020 on the DMV investigation. 1020 code is cancel the DMV investigation, and they say we'll send an officer down to tell you why. Because there's already CHP. Sarah's at the DMV. She said several CHP show up and interface with Tracy. They don't arrest her for the stolen Harley Davidson registration. They let her go again. And so there was some sort of cancellation of that investigation by someone named S4 who wasn't at the scene, but was sending someone to tell them why. That's all in the scanner.
To tell the
officers there why to cancel the investigation. And that's all in the public
That's
scanner.
a little weird.
That's really suspicious, right? And I'm going, well, who is this S4? If he is part of my raid, then that's just an open and shut thing. They need.
And did you know this was occurring?
No, I didn't.
When it
I was
happened,
oblivious.
no.
I was at home with my son and Brian Macbeth's daughter, who he left there because he said he was going to go do something. I don't know what he did, but he got arrested for it after that. And he left his daughter at my house because it was safe, and because there was nothing going on there. It was just me and my son. And he left his daughter there to play with my son for a couple hours while he went and did something. And that's why he was at my house. He was picking up his daughter, walked outside to his car, and before he could drive away, the police swooped on him.
Okay, so backing up, so they leave the DMV, no problems. I'm guessing
No
they had
problems.
to leave the
police and everything.
leave the
there.
motorcycle.
The motorcycle, they didn't have the motorcycle, but they were trying to register it, so they didn't arrest her for that. But she had said she was trying to register it, so you'd think they would arrest her for trying to register her.
But they don't, so they both leave.
Right. So that's 2 crimes that I know she committed, including the smash BMW the 2 days before. They come straight to the house. This is now 6:30, and the raid happens 3 minutes after they walk in on a 7-day-old warrant. Now, note, you're supposed
who's at the house?
at that point, just me, my son is at the house. We're the only ones at the house.
The other little girl had been
Right.
picked up.
Yeah, I thought they were long gone. They were been in their car, and they were detained at their car, but I thought Brian was gone already from his car. So his little girl, he picked her up, got her in the car. Tracy comes with Sarah and another friend named Ashley. They walk in the house. I say, "Who's here with you?" Tracy and Ashley. I never saw Ashley. She was in the bathroom. And Tracy walked up with Sarah, and I remember exactly verbatim. It's Tracy saying, "You want to buy?" She said, "Do you know anyone that wants to buy some Xanax?" And my response was, "I don't even know what Xanax does to anything. I don't even know what that does. I have no." And then the next word I said was, "It looks like a raid," because I looked at my video camera and there's all these police pulling up to my house. I'm like, what the heck? So I walked down to secure my son because, so they don't shoot him or something like that, because they pull
So before
they pull guns on women and children.
Before they enter, you see them on your security cameras.
Yeah, I see them of course. I saw them pulling up. I thought actually they were arresting someone on the street that I saw across the street. I said, oh, that person's in trouble across the street. Next time I see them coming to my door. Well, they can't get in my door. My door is blocked. The front door, we were using the side door. So I didn't barricade it right then. We had reconfigured the living room so that people would use the side door because all of our heat leaves the front door. The fireplace is in the front room, and if you use that front door, all the heat flies out.
So the front door was barricaded.
The couch was in front of it, like from earlier, like that day or that week, something like that. And so they come in. The door was ajar already because Tracy and Sarah also had tried to go to the front door. They'd been gone for a while. I think I reconfigured the living room that day. So they come, they go, "What's wrong with the front door?" I say, I reconfigured the front room so that people use the side. Sarah leaves it open, just barely ajar, this like 2 inches. Goes, "Okay." So the video camera that they took from me would show them coming to the front door, not able to get in, come around the side door.
Would it show you rearrange? Do you have any inside cameras?
No, not inside. No, but it was before the cops. We even knew the cops were there. So,
but it was that day you decided to rearrange.
It was that day because Sarah tried to get in too. Yeah, Sarah and Tracy both. So my videotape of the front door should show Sarah and Tracy and Ashley come to the front door, Tracy with the backpack full of drugs, and try to get in. I say, just go around the side. So we go around the side. They come in. 3 minutes later, the police try to come in the front door. I had no idea the police were behind them, obviously.
So you were up in your office.
Yeah.
Tracy is also up in the office with you?
Tracy was in the office,
Okay.
yes.
And then you leave the office to go downstairs to get your son.
To get my son and let the police in because I knew they couldn't get in the front door. So I go to I tell them because there's a gun coming through the front door. The guy has his arm through the front door and going, open the door, open the door. I'm going, I'll let you in the side. You can't really get in that way. I will let you in the side right now. And so they hear that. Finally, after they stop screaming, my kid's like, traumatized because he sees a gun coming through the door. And so we put him in the back with Sarah. I go to the side. I open the side door, unlock it. I go to the gate, which also has to be unlocked, and I open that, and I voluntarily let them in. Now, the police report says that they saw me running out of the side door of the house, like trying to get away. I'm like, are you guys crazy? I let you guys I was the one that let you in the gate. You wouldn't have been in for 10 more minutes if I hadn't have done that, right? You would have had to figure out how to get in the house. So I didn't think there was anything to hide, honestly. I didn't have any reason. I just wanted to cooperate and let them in. So I went.
So you left your house to open a gate to bring
door,
them in?
Yeah, out the side door to the gate for our yard. It's a big wooden gate, 6 foot. Open the gate, let them in. They immediately arrested me, immediately put me in cuffs, said it was for firearms, distribution of firearms. Isolated me from everybody else, took me all the way out to the cop cars, all the way out to the street. Everyone else was allowed to stay, and Tracy was allowed to stay in the house. She was found at the bottom in the kitchen, down the stairs of my office. The police report says she never went upstairs, according to her, though they found her cell phone up there and didn't confiscate it. It was right next to the drugs, with the bottle that said Shelley Aubrey in it. And she asked for her money. She had $17,000 on her, and she said, I asked for her wallet. They gave her, they gave her the wallet, and then they said, well, we're taking your money. This is what she told me, though. They told her, if you claim that heroin, we're not going to give you this money back. If you don't claim the heroin, we'll give you your money back.
That's what they said to her in your house?
That's what they told her in my house. She told me this when I got out, and they said that. I said, well, what happened to your $17,000? This is documented, that they went to the Red Line and gave her money back the next day. People saw it. It's got to be documented somewhere. They gave her $17,000 back the next day at the Red Line. Nobody gets their money back at the Red Line. You have to go to the police department and claim it and get it back.
The police drove her $17,000 to the Red Line.
To the Red Line, to her hotel room, asked for her at the front desk, and gave her money.
And this is documented, or you're assuming it is?
That's documented. Well, I've seen on the calls for services, I can't remember what category they're on. They show at the same time she said that happened, they show some police intervention at the Red Line, but it says somewhat strange category, like proactive policing or something like that. But there's an incident at the same time.
Why would she tell you all of this if she's the one that set you up?
Because she was.
How does that make sense?
Still trying to save face, I suppose. People don't want you to know that. I mean, I think she was put in. I don't know if it was preordained that she did this, or if they'd made that was an at the moment deal. But that's what she told me. I went to her room because I was going to ask her. I was going to say, "You are going to claim your bag, aren't you?" And I thought most honorable, respectable people would say, yeah, I'm not going to let you be responsible for what I brought into your house. Because I don't search women's purses when they come into my house. That's not the culture of America. We don't search people's, maybe we should, but I didn't think to search this woman's bag when she came into my house. She'd only been there 3 minutes anyways, and she'd just come upstairs. And when she said, anyone that wants to buy Xanax, and I said, I don't even know what that stuff does or is, and then
you had no prior experience or knowledge of Xanax.
I don't still know. I still didn't until the case happened. The complaint said possession of alprazolam, something like that for sale. I said, what the hell is alprazolam? And they said, it's Xanax. I said, oh, okay. That's what she had, huh? Someone brought me one afterwards just to show me what it was. And
you had never seen Xanax before?
I had never, no.
Had you ever represented any other drug cases or drug defendants?
Not for alprazolam.
Or Xanax?
That's the generic name for Xanax, yeah. No, I hadn't done a Xanax case before. Usually pills don't even get charged if you're dealing with bigger drugs like heroin or something. They do.
So they arrest you and book you that same day.
Yeah.
And you post bail.
I didn't want to post bail. I stayed in the jail. I had offers.
For how long?
A couple of days. I wasn't going to get out at all until they gave me my speedy trial. I was going to do it all from within as a protest. I was going to stay in the jail and until the case was completed because I was mad.
What did you think at that time when you're arrested? They say for firearms.
I thought that Tracy would come to her senses and step up and for the firearms.
Well, did you know that she had planted the drugs at that time?
I had no idea.
What were you thinking when they arrest you and they take you downtown?
I thought, this is crazy. I wasn't worried about it. Well, see, I was arrested immediately for on suspicion of firearms distribution.
And they didn't say anything about
when
drugs?
When I was in the car, they came to me, Tom came to me and said, "Oh, now you're under arrest for possession with intent to sell heroin." I thought, what? Then it woke me up. What? Then I was a little bit worried about it. I said, "What are you talking about?" And then he said, "Well, Tracy says they're not hers." I said, "I didn't say anything about Tracy." What? All the other, I said, "You better ask those girls whose that is, because it's not mine." I had no idea about any of it. I'd never even seen the bag.
So all of the drugs were Tracy's. They were found in your office.
Yes.
What about the drugs that were found on you?
There were no drugs. There was an empty bag found on me that is presumed to be a bag of meth. That was not a usable quantity. It was a scraper bag. It wasn't even tested.
But so they didn't test it.
Along with a bunch of other money that they took from me, $1,200, and some other trash in my pocket.
But the bag wasn't tested.
I don't believe the bag was tested. No, it's in the picture. You can see the photo on the very corner of it. They're charging me with meth from Tracy's bag. She had heroin, 2 scales, methamphetamine, Xanax, and a bottle of Suboxone in a prescription bottle with one name on it. It's all in one bag. The only indicia of ownership was the one name on the bottle of Suboxone, Shelley Aubrey.
So wait, all these drugs were in one bag in your office?
In one bag, in one place at the top of the stairs, yes. That's all, yeah.
But the bag that was on you, what was in the bag?
That was nothing. Admittedly, it looked like it had some white substance in it. I pick up trash all the time around my yard. I mean, I have this habit. I pick stuff up and I don't go to the trash can. I just put it in my pocket. So, I mean, it doesn't. I don't even care if people believe that it wasn't a usable quantity. So it wasn't a crime.
But do you believe that there were drugs in that bag?
I believe there possibly could have been drugs in that bag. Yes.
But you're saying you picked it up.
Yeah, I picked that up. Yeah, but I whether there are drugs in it or not, that's still just a misdemeanor, even if it was a usable quantity. They're charging me with 7 felonies for what they would call a scraper bag, a trash bag. Okay, 7 felonies out of that. How do you get that? Because Tracy's bag.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
That's nuts. It's not. What is my retributive theory? The punishment fits the crime. Right?
So they're going after you for the bag of everything.
They're going after me for my license. That's why they're going after me. They're going after me to neutralize me from practicing law. That's the bottom line. Officer Steele told Brian Macbeth at the scene when Brian said, "What is this all about?" He said, "It's a political thing." That's what he told Brian Macbeth when he was being arrested. Okay? They're going after me because I've been a pain in their ass, because I'm outspoken. I talk about this because I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid to mix it up with them within the confines of law. They don't like that. They don't like the people they handle on the streets that make them money. Okay, to think that they could get a good deal in the criminal defense without having to tell. Okay, they want people to think that the only way you could survive our prosecution is to become one of our informants and help us make money. That's what they want people to think. If they see someone getting a good deal just through straight criminal defense, because let me tell you, when you go to law school and when you practice criminal defense, Chapter 1 of criminal defense is not how to tell. Okay, that is not criminal defense at all. That is not criminal defense. That is politics, is what that is, and money and profit making politics. Okay, so they don't want me practicing law anymore. They don't want me practicing criminal defense anymore.